All right. Hi. Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. We are so grateful to have you here with us today. Our guest today is Josh Juice Quezada, who is a European football star. He has an interesting distinction. He's the only player that's rushed for over 1,000 yards for multiple teams in multiple countries, and he did it 4 times. So 4 different teams in 4 different countries rushed for over 1,000 yards. But that's not all. Juice is also, in addition to being a football star and a world traveler, he's a substitute teacher, he's a coach, and he's currently a yoga and fitness instructor. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Juice, we're really grateful to have you here today.
I'm excited to, be on here with you. Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out. So, let's get into it, man.
Well, so if we can start, I just want to hear a little bit more about your story. Not a lot of people grow up dreaming of playing American football in Europe. And that's what you've done over the last several years. Can you talk about, we could go back to college if you want to. You played for Brigham Young and then for Fresno State and had a lot of success there. And then what happened after there? What got you over to Europe?
Okay, so just like any kid, the American dream for me was to play in the NFL. So, that didn't work out for me. And so after I had my pro day, I took a year off, but I still wanted to be surrounded by football. So I ended up coaching over at a junior college, Santa Ana Junior College in Southern California. I was coaching there and still, in the mix and staying within football. And I was like, you know what, I still want to play. And I don't care what it takes and what opportunity comes, across me. And so what I did is a friend of mine's like, hey, why don't you look into playing overseas? And I was like, you know what, I want to do it. Let's do it. So I end up, uploading just like, a resume for a platform that they have for people that are interested in playing overseas. And then I started getting some offers. And the first offer not the first one, it was probably like third or fourth offer were, they mentioned paying for my expenses. They said, I'll pay for your flights. We'll pay for your meals. We'll pay for your housing, your health insurance if you get hurt. We'll give you a bus pass because public transportation is the norm out here. And that country happened to be Poland. And I was like, wow, I've never, I don't know much about the country. And that kind of intrigued me. I think that's what helped me in what I studied in college. I got my degree in philosophy and religious studies. So that kind of opened my eyes and, being more interested in how different cultures, are. So yeah, I let my coach know, like, hey, I want to return, but in the off season, their season's perfect. I can still coach during season. In the off season, I can still scout and recruit from overseas, but still get a season in and then come back and do it again. And that's what I did. He's like, yeah, go ahead and, enjoy it, have fun, come back. We'll have some, still have a spot for you coaching. And, got my feet wet, ended up flying, 6,000 miles away from home and landed in Poland. And once I landed there, I was all in. I didn't have a choice of, isn't no official visits, no, let me check it out. It was either I was all in or not. And I ended up taking that chance. And I wouldn't say, it was easy transition. It was a struggle, first week or two, talking about it and actually being in a foreign country is completely different. My expectations, I kind of had them a little high. I thought there would be more people that spoke English. I thought it really was a culture shock, and I actually enjoyed it. I kind of embraced it. And again, you got to be able to adapt. And so it took me a little bit. But the biggest thing that was a struggle was, of course, there was a language barrier. Everyone's speaking Polish. I'm speaking English. And so I had to use my hands a lot. So that was the first transition. Another one was the metric scale difference. So not only was there a language barrier, but they use a different metric scale. So, I learned the basics, numbers and greetings. And so, they're using kilograms and stuff like that. So luckily, in the weight room in college, I learned a little bit about how that worked. And, it was only a matter of time where I was able to go, by myself and, go grocery shopping. Because at first I remember ordering, I wanted 2 apples. And I remember they say 2 kilo apples. And I'm thinking I'm getting 2 apples. And I got 4 pounds of apples, 2 kilos. So I'm getting this huge bag. And, I got this huge line behind me. And I remember, okay, thank you. And just leaving and came back to my apartment. with 4 pounds of apples, and they're like, hey, what are we doing with all these apples? But just to give you an example of being able to adjust. But in the football life, and the same thing with the culture, I had to adjust. So I was not only a player, but I was also a coach. They're a couple years behind in terms of IQ, and so I took it upon myself to make sure I was helping them out and helping out the youth teams, and I loved it, loved every second of it. And so I was like, you know what, let me keep doing this. I enjoy playing overseas. I love the food. Everything was just completely different. I went from not liking coleslaw to that's one of the side traditional dishes in Poland, and I've never had so many different types of coleslaw. I had like 7 different types of coleslaw, from green to orange to typical white. And so my palate definitely changed. My taste buds changed a lot, and had a great year. We made it all the way to the championship game. We ended up losing. And, I did a little bit of traveling. I was a little hesitant just because, I was so far away from home. And I lived in a city where a lot of people, kind of have a good time already. I was in the seaside. I was in the Tri-City north of Poland, in a city called Gdynia. And so, you didn't really need much. You didn't have to travel. I was in a beautiful place already. And so I only went to one other country, and I ended up going to Berlin, taking a train over to Berlin. It took about 5 or 6 hours west. And after that, I was like, you know what, if I decide to play overseas, the next year I got to travel a little bit more. I'm very, it's like the States here, but for Europe, it was a whole another country. And so I ended up deciding to go back in 2017 and end up signing with the team in Finland. It was a Scandinavian country where it was completely different. Again, a huge culture shock, but a little bit easier when it comes to English. That is a huge language there. But the Finnish language, oh my gosh, probably one of the hardest languages I've ever came across. Just because, man, I was like, you know what, there's a lot of Americans that have been living there for 5+ years, and they still don't know the language because it's so intense, it's so hard. But it was fun. So I ended up, signing there. The cost of living cost a lot more. But again, being able to adjust and adapt. And a lot of people were like, wasn't it freezing up there? Well, the season's a little bit more towards the summer. So I got there in April of 2017. Ended up, I was there for about 5.5 months. And again, had a blast. I loved it. I traveled a lot more. Not a winning season. That was probably the first year I was a part of a team that didn't win. And we started off the season 0-8. Oh my gosh, I've never been a part of a team like that. And it was kind of different. It was very different. It was very humbling, that's for sure. And so kind of rallied up the guys because I actually ended up flying into Finland a week before our first game. So it was kind of like a late start. So I was like, you know what, I got to be able to adjust and adapt. And once I got there, I didn't know my teammates. We played a game. I'm trying to communicate, like, what is your name? I'm trying to talk to you. Excuse me. But same thing. We ended up finishing the season, I believe 3-9. Yeah, it was a struggle. So we didn't make playoffs. And but I did end up traveling a lot more. I ended up going to 4 countries. And I'm going to Sweden, next to Finland, Czech Republic, and I'm going to Netherlands, and then end up driving on a bus from Czech Republic to Netherlands, end up passing Germany again, and then end up flying back to Finland. So I was at that point where I was like, man, this is what I want to continue doing, especially at a young age. I've noticed,
Now, hold on. Let me stop you there for a second, just because I can imagine you're young, and the decision first to go to Poland had to have been scary, and what was it that got you into the mindset where you thought you could do something like that? Because most people, we're home right now, we're stuck at home, and there are opportunities to try new things, to do new things. But a lot of kids are just stuck because they're nervous about trying something new or doing. Now, what you did was huge, going all the way around the world to a new country that doesn't speak your language, and you don't know what to expect. How did you get to that point where you could say yes to that and make that leap?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I enjoy is a challenge. And I'd love being able to overcome adversity, and I love new things and trying new things. So, again, it was tough. It was tough making that decision. Going to a foreign country where I told them I only know two things about your country. Poland. One is you sell Polish dog at Costco, and the second thing is I remember watching World's Strongest Men, and one of the guys was from Poland, and I said, those are honestly the only two things that I know about your country. And, once I talked to the head coach, and he kind of, you know, um, affirmed me, and let me know, like, hey, that's more of a reason to come. This is something new. We have so much history that, you can learn and get to know. And we'd love to have you. And again, Poland is a country where they're not used to seeing foreigners. And so when once I landed, they just made me feel at home. And that's what I loved about foreign countries, at least at least where I was in Europe, where I was in the eastern side of Europe, where the cost of living is a lot cheaper. And that was a big thing too. They said, you don't have to worry about, we're going to pay you. And our cost of living is way cheaper than, of course, Southern California. And that was another thing, I can be able to live really well and not have to worry about it. Like, hey, we'll pay for everything. And so that was kind of the deal breaker, that kind of reassured me that taking a chance and at the same time not being a liability. They invested everything in me. And so I was like, you know what, I'll give you everything I got. I still have, this desire, this passion for this game. And, I'm willing to go thousands of miles away in order to at least, get closer to what I always want to do as a kid. And this actually exceeded that.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between American football in the U.S. and American football in Eastern Europe. I'm sure your experience was vastly different, even on the fan side. I mean, people probably recognized you because of the hair. But aside from that, I doubt you were treated as a major celebrity, or am I wrong on that? What was it like to be a football player in Europe?
Yeah, it was for sure a huge difference. There's a lot of different rules. You definitely have to be more patient. When you transition from a Division I college level football to European football, it's a little bit different. The work ethic is a little bit different. You got guys who have full-time jobs on top of playing football. So this is more of a hobby for a lot of people, and I think that's the biggest difference. And so I would explain that, like, hey, if you guys want to be champions, if you want to be winners, you got to be more consistent. They're like, oh, well, I have to work during the day. Our practices are late at night from 8 to 10:30 p.m. And
Wow.
so I had to take a step back and kind of reevaluate, like, man, how can we be successful with what I'm working with, and college football, this is our job. So every day I can train with these guys. We're here, I'm only working with the guys. We practice 2-3 times at the most. And I'm like, man, so I'm going to make sure, I reach out to the leaders and let them know, what I need them to do, during that time you have. Like, hey, if you can get in here 30 minutes early and, again, be able to adjust, that was a challenge. And, that was something that they were used to. So I had to get them out of their comfort zone and get myself out of that comfort zone and again, be able to adapt and